Hi, Emily here, talking trips. We're going to go over the Holy Bull. They ran this race yesterday, so it's kind of a quick talk about it while it's fresh in everybody's mind. And a couple important factors in here we're going to look at. We're going to look at the winner, a lot of chatter about upside. We'll kind of dive into that trip. And then, of course, a 2-year-old champion, Classic Empire, and his third place effort yesterday and some of the factors that contributed. So I have the results pulled up here from the grid. So we've got our speed figure. They're sorted in order 1st through 7th with the grade and the keywords. Pretty standard for these videos. So let's start with the winner, Irish War Cry. And so pretty strong figure, got a 108. Of course, we're going to, anytime you see this kind of flag next to it, it's pending verification, but just kind of gives us a good read for right now. So 108 on the optics figure, earned a B+ grade. Of course, the grade contributes to the effort versus that field at that class level. Lone Green Tactics Plus. And I'm kind of debating on this to whether I'm going to go back in and write perfect or not, because pretty close to a perfect trip. This horse, and with the Tactics Plus, so what that refers to is a good ride. So Rosario kind of took advantage of the lead early, and was kind of able to stay in front and dictate the pace throughout. He set a pretty solid pace, almost 2 even quarters at 24, and kicked away late. So really good trip. And again, I'm debating whether I'm going to write perfect or not, but for now, so we'll talk about this loan because the loan is in red, and we're kind of talking about this, but for now, we did the analytics early, and horses with loan trips, they kind of have it their own way. It's not stressful at all, and sometimes that can be a negative factor going forward, which is part of why I'm debating on that perfect. And Lone Green Tactics Plus. So one of the things people are talking about afterwards, I'm referring to Twitter, is, oh, he's still green, he's still learning, there's so much upside, this and that, and that's not always the case. There's even though he's learning and still figuring it out, he can still run a top effort, which I kind of think that this was, and contributing to that lone trip. So if I pull up, hopefully I have this pulled up here, we'll go and look at Irish War Cry first. And you can look at his speed figure. He's a lightly raced horse, only 3 starts, but, really, essentially improving 10 points every time. At some point, there's going to be a ceiling. We talk about that genetic potential. I talk about that with my athletes doing CrossFit and strength and conditioning. You can't just keep improving. When you start at the gym and everything's new and you're lifting weights, you're making all these PRs, personal records every week. At a certain point, you start to kind of plateau. People are like, oh, I'm not getting stronger. No, you've just kind of reached your top, and that's sort of what I feel with this horse. And not that the 108 is bad. If that horse can duplicate that, that makes him a very, very, very legit player. With that figure, I'll pull up because I have the Santa Anita race here. I'm not going to go into the Santa Anita race yesterday, but just by comparison on the speed figures, winner earning a 93. Which, you'd have, that's basically a 4th place effort in this race. So strength this race being much stronger. I think that the ride that Rosario gave was very advantageous here, taking advantage of the lead with this lightly raced horse. I know I saw on Twitter Graham Motion saying something like, well, the horse was training well, we'll take a shot, and that might have been by the directions, just go to the front and, just see what he's got, and I think that's kind of the way it played out, and worked out here. He gave a good effort. Again, I'm not crazy that there's a whole lot of upside, but if he can continue where he's at, then and just kind of work out some of those quirks, the greenness, sort of a late lead change, which he's shown in the past. That's not, I don't believe that's anything new. He's got that green 2 back out of the gate, things like that. So, but this horse has done nothing wrong and gave a good effort yesterday. We'll go to the 2nd place finisher, Gunnevara. who ran a good second. Did encounter a little bit of trouble on the turn. I noted that it was a trouble minus, and trouble minus, what we'll do is with that is note that there was trouble, but that it didn't affect kind of the overall outcome. That trouble wasn't significant enough that if it didn't occur, he would have won the race. And I don't think that was the case. He lost a little bit of momentum and, kind of gave the rail going out about 3 paths around tiring rivals. But never really took up enough that it affected his ability to win. Still a solid effort. I do think, and I talked about this in the handicapping video, that there are some distance limitations. I think solid horse, but I'm not that crazy about this horse getting extra ground. Again, we shall see, but that's kind of my take and my read on this horse. I do like him. I thought he ran a really solid effort. He's super game. I mean, he was the only horse that was kind of running on. Classic Empire, so this is kind of the big one because he was a big favorite coming in, 2-year-old champion. I believe, I don't really follow the futures, but I believe he's a favorite in the futures or one of them at least. And the biggest note on this horse was just his overall appearance pre-race. I'll click back over. We can kind of look at his running lines. Because he was super washed out. I mean, there's warm and then there's warm. I mean, this horse was like head to toe covered in sweat. Kidneys, neck, a little manic, kind of anxious going to the track with the pony. And then once he got to the gate, he was reluctant to load. And again, we know everything in here that that's not something that this horse does. Yeah, he had that, where he wheeled at the start, but even there he wasn't washed out, he wasn't reluctant to load. So those are things that I think are really important. That if a horse does that all the time, you're kind of like, yeah, he's quirky, that's what he does, like Shackelford's the one we'll always bring up. He was always washed out, so you just didn't really pay any mind to it. But when it's something that they don't do, that's when it's you want to make note and you want to see how that affects their overall performance. We were talking back and forth with Charlie Davis about this because he's like, yeah, but it's Florida and a lot of the horses get warm, and I'll kind of note that too, that when it is on a warm day, that some horses will have a little bit of sweat. You can tell they're warm, but this was excessive. We did note that in the freeform comments. So with a horse like this is something I would want to watch with this horse. Does he boil over before he's going to the gate? Things like that. But one of the other things that I think is a little bit more telling on this horse, we're looking at the horse's speed figures, and there's no real big progression. He did have a little bit of trouble there, but overall, just kind of not making that big jump from 2 to 3. Granted, he had only a couple workouts going in, kind of had a rough trip. It wasn't his day, but I think that's important. I think that's important in handicapping going forward is, is he going to make that, if Irish Warcry runs a 108 again, does this horse have that improvement in him? At a short price, I might look somewhere else and try to find out. I talked about it in that handicapping video. Both those wins following that gate incident were under perfect trips. Does this horse need everything to go his own way? What is his genetic potential? Is it a little bit below some of the others? This horse, we will talk about the trip because this trip, aside from his pre-race antics, he did break a little slow, which, obviously he's got those 3 slogs early on in his career. But this just was not a good trip for Gulfstream, when you're parked kind of 3 wide, and he had the 4-horse Talk Logistics to his inside, and I believe Paco, I want to say, is on Talk Logistics. Who's ever on Talk Logistics was kind of keeping Classic Empire pushed out, doing some race riding. So, not a good trip, but I think that there was just, overall, I think it's just safe to say it wasn't his day. Going forward, those are the things I would be concerned about. what does he look like pre-race? Follow him from that aspect, and again, you've got to question where that move forward is coming from. I think it's possible, but again, it's when you come to betting, at what price are we making that projection? So let's just kind of look over the rest of the field. Talk logistics. Yeah, Paco was aboard. Just overall, looked at this horse. Again, not a great trip, but just no finish when he needed. I just don't think he's on the level of the top three. Cavill, who I was interested in going into that race, that effort wasn't that great to me at all. C plus. Again, not a great trip. I think this horse needs to be more aggressively ridden, but where last time I was interested in going forward, I'm kind of meh on him right now. And then the 2, Save Ground, showed a little bit of late run, but that's kind of, pretty common. I've seen this with these Zito runners, off the pace runners, making that late run, pretty much kind of running past tired. And then Shamasan, just never in the race at all. I mean, just never. Saya's never tried. This horse was completely wrapped up, never even ran the last half mile. I guess, with Irish War Cry, kind of joke about this, but, the who did he beat type of thing, I think is important going forward. I mean, Gunnevera, if you question the distance, it's not his ideal. Classic Empire didn't show up, and then the other 4 horses were just not on his level. So again, solid effort, but I'm not crazy about upside. If anything, I'm probably the only person that would say regress off that, and I think that's something to look at. The race dynamics. See if I have the plot pulled up here. Didn't run the plot again. When I did this before, we had that 6 horse in here for Pletcher, who was going to be another pace factor, but essentially the 5 got the 3's trip. You just kind of flip-flop and, was able to stay out on that lead. And so what will happen when there is a little bit more contention in that quadrant 1? He's a horse that he's never, we'll click back over, never had to really go eye to eye. Was kind of able to make that wide sweeping move here, never really had to look another horse in the eye, was lone on the lead here. So those are questions, is he going to run a good race when he has to duel? When is he going to run a good race when he has to sit behind horses? If he's forced to rate, things like that. So those are important handicapping factors and things to think about, and what you won't see written in the form. I try my best when I'm doing these extended comments to kind of, if I really feel some of those factors to include, distance, things like that, the projections, and then go back and watch the video and critical thinking. All right, interesting race. So we have a few more 3-year-old races. We're going to try to get through the next couple days. Thanks again for watching.